All right, so we are here in downtown Chicago, what is known as the Loop, and we're looking west on Lake Street. At a time on any normal evening would be called simply sunset, but twice a year here in Chicago it is called Chicagohenge, and that happens twice a year, once on the vernal equinox in spring and the autumnal equinox going into fall. And so that's what we're witnessing right now is the autumnal equinox. And interesting enough about Chicago, it's built on almost a perfect grid with the directional map, north, south, east, and west. And so when looking west during either the Chicagohenge during the spring or Chicagohenge during the fall, no matter what street you're on facing west, you will see the sunset directly in between the buildings, directly above the street. And so sunset here Central Time is set for about 6:30. So we just don't want to miss any of this beautiful color as we look at the L train going east on Lake Street, and the sun is about to set here in Chicago. Now, something you can't see because I'm facing the Chicagohenge sunset here is behind me. There are anywhere from maybe about 24 amateur and professional photographers. Many of them have gathered here twice a year, every year. In the week leading up to Chicagohenge, surrounding the spring equinox and the fall equinox, you can see these people here along many of the streets that face west. And so we'll go ahead and keep our view towards the sunset right now. And it is a well-known event here in Chicago. As far as being big, if you go down to Randolph Street, which is just south here of Lake Street, you got another 20 amateur and professional photographers there. And throughout the week leading up to Chicagohenge, social media is just flooded with pictures of the beautiful sight that you're about to witness here. And hopefully we can capture it good enough here on a live stream video. But we'll be able to get what we can, and I'll post some pictures later of a typical Chicagohenge. And so again, what we're waiting for here is the sunset, which is locally known here as Chicagohenge. Happens twice a year, once at the spring equinox and once in the fall equinox. Something unusual about Chicago is that you are able to see this facing west twice a year, where this phenomenon isn't necessarily limited to Chicago on its own. You can see it happen in New York. You can see it happen in Los Angeles. You can see it happen in San Francisco. But typically that only happens once a year in those cities. The way Chicago is set up directionally, the city planners, maybe had some forethought going into it, but we really luck out here being Chicagoans, being able to witness this twice a year. And as you can see, it is a little smoggy, a little smoky. There's a haze, so if anything, hopefully we'll be able to see that big bulbous sun drop in between the skyscrapers here in Chicago. And if anything, maybe that'll add some color to it along the reflections of the skyscrapers here. Now, Pablo, that is a good question. There are some professional photographers here. Me personally, I've been in radio for 25 years. And us in the radio broadcasting industry, we're all just kind of picking up this new technology of having a camera in our hands, and being able to utilize social media to share these events, not only on radio broadcasting. Of course, we couldn't make that visual, but also using social media and these phone cameras that we've got. So me personally, I don't know how many filters you would need to photograph this thing properly, but you will see a major difference in the photographs that I take and the photographs that some of these people take. And there is a good chance you could find an apartment for a pretty cheap price here in downtown Chicago. Cheaper than I always hesitate to say this because I don't want everyone to just hop on a plane and drop all their stuff and leave the West Coast and move to Chicago. But me, being a transplant from Seattle, I'll just say that the prices are uh, very pleasing to me to live in downtown Chicago at this point. All right, so once again, I'll just go ahead and mention what we're waiting for here. We're waiting for the sun to drop down right in front of right on top of the street here, Lake Street, right in between the skyscrapers. And this is an event called Chicagohenge. Happens twice a year for about a week leading up to the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox. You can see the sunset directly looking west down just about any of the downtown streets. And so you might not be able to see it on the camera, but I can start to see the sun reflecting off of one of the skyscrapers to the right, one of our many beautiful city buses there. I'm sitting here in the middle of the street so we can get the best visual. And again, I'm not the only one here. Behind me, behind the camera, you have about 20, maybe even more amateur and professional photographers. And as you go south or even north, each street along the way that faces west, you'll be able to see many groups of photographers about the same size as you can witness this event, which is really amazing. Not just from the street that I'm pointed at. I just choose this one because it's beautiful with the L train in the background. You really get a sense of Chicago. But any of these streets facing west, you can witness the event known as Chicagohenge. All right, so I'll just pop in here again. It's getting closer. The sunset is set for about 6:30, 6:35, and you can begin to see the reflection a lot bigger to the right there on the far right skyscraper. So the sun is about to pop in right over the top of Lake Street here in downtown Chicago, looking west. And this does happen every year in Chicago. Happens twice a year, as I had mentioned earlier in the video. This is something that happens in New York. It happens in Los Angeles. It happens in San Francisco. The exception here in Chicago is that you can witness it twice each year, and that would be at both the spring equinox and the fall equinox. As we're sitting here for the autumnal equinox, we will watch this sun just pop right in over the top of Lake Street, over the Chicago L train, in between these skyscrapers downtown. Now, if you look to the right, you can see just a deep glowing red on the side of the skyscraper. And this is the autumnal equinox, waiting now just minutes away as the sun is going to set just above Lake Street here in downtown Chicago. It's known locally here as Chicagohenge, and that's when just about no matter where you are in downtown Chicago, you can look to the west and you can see the sunset directly above the street, and the effect takes place in between all the skyscrapers. It's just a real beautiful, awe-inspiring sight here in person. The camera, of course, never does it any justice unless you're a professional photographer and you've got all the equipment for that. But streaming live here, hopefully, be able to show you just a glimpse of what Chicagoans and visitors to Chicago can experience twice a year at the spring equinox and the autumnal equinox heading into fall. Now to the left, you can begin to see the sun peeking out from behind the skyscrapers. It's about to just drop down right over the top of Lake Street. This, of course, is known as Chicagohenge. That's exactly it's going to be great. So there you go. The sun is just about setting now to where you can't see it anymore. And of course, it's a bit hazy this year. So usually the entire corridor here would fill up with the sunshine and the sun rays and a bunch of color. But with all the haze, it's kind of limited. But this happens twice a year. So, I usually come down here and sit on Lake Street looking west twice a year, spring equinox and fall equinox for Chicagohenge. And I'm not the only one. So now that the sun has gone down, we'll go ahead and get up and take a look at kind of the gathering that's behind me. And you can see camera crews, amateur and professional photographers, south and north of Lake Street in Chicago, facing west. One of the amazing things about Chicagohenge is just about any street that's facing west, you can view the anomaly that is Chicagohenge. And most of these people, they know each other from either online groups or know each other in person from coming down here year after year, twice a year for Chicagohenge. And we'll just go ahead and take a quick look. That's 2 Prudential building, home of the beautiful, luxurious WBBM News Radio studios here in Chicago, 105.9 FM, 780 AM. You can download the radio.com app and listen to WBBM News Radio, where I, of course, am a reporter and news anchor. COVID-19 has many of us out of the building for an indefinite amount of time, so we are doing a lot of remote working. But as a reporter, that's just fine by me because it gets me out on the street, keeps me out on the street. Again, there's your amateur and professional photographers getting all packed up after another successful Chicagohenge in downtown Chicago.